Hello, apologies for not being able to make it to the Housing and Immigration Summit. However, today I want to give this remote presentation on Australia's excessive mass immigration policy and the devastating impact it's having on Australia's rental market. Let's begin. Cotality, who were formerly known as CoreLogic, estimated that rental payments were chewing up a record share of Australian household incomes at the end of last year. And Cotality's June quarter rental review estimated that weekly rents nationally have increased by $200 or 43% over the past 5 years, meaning that the median Australian tenant is now paying an astonishing $10,350 extra per year to rent the median home. The driver of the surge in rents has been the post-pandemic surge in immigration, which saw an unprecedented 1.1 million net migrants land in Australia in the 30 months between June 2022 and the end of 2024. This surge in immigration sent rental vacancy rates to record lows and drove rents through the roof. Last year, net overseas migration fell from its recent record high, from a peak of around 550,000 in 2023 to 340,000 in 2024, and it seemed that the rental crisis was finally easing. Rental vacancy rates began to rise, in part due to a rise in household sizes, and rental growth slowed. However, in 2025, the rental crisis is worsening once more. Rental vacancy rates, as measured by Cotality and SQM Research, have retightened this year, back to record low levels recorded in 2023. The culprit for the retightening of the rental market appears to be surging net overseas migration. The Australian Bureau of Statistics monthly net permanent long-term arrivals data showed there were a record 348,400 net permanent long-term arrivals in the first 7 months of 2025. This is up around 5% from last year's record high, and it's an astonishing 56% higher than the same period in 2019 before the pandemic. The monthly net permanent long-term arrival series has historically closely tracked the official quarterly net overseas migration series, which suggests that immigration is rising again. Fortunately, Australian renters are facing a dire outlook. AMP chief economist Shane Oliver illustrates above that after immigration more than doubled in the mid-2000s and annual population growth jumped by 150,000, Australian housing became structurally undersupplied. Australian housing is chronically undersupplied, Oliver wrote in July this year. This has been the case since the mid-2000s, when immigration levels and hence population growth surged and the supply of new homes did not keep up, Oliver wrote. Shane Oliver estimated that the cumulative housing shortage is between 200,000 and 300,000 homes, depending on the assumed number of people per dwelling. CBRE's latest apartment vacancy and rent outlook forecasts that population demand will continue to exceed supply over the next 5 years. As a result, the national capital city vacancy rate is forecast by CBRE to fall from its current record low of about 1.8% to a new record low of 1.1% by 2030. Apartment rents are also projected by CBRE to soar over the next 5 years. To add further insult to injury, the National Housing Supply and Affordability Council forecasts that Australia's housing shortage will worsen by 79,000 dwellings over the 5 years to 2028-29. This is on top of the current 200 to 300,000 shortage estimated by Shane Oliver. The National Housing Supply and Affordability Council's forecast is based on the Centre for Population, which conservatively projects a reduction in net overseas migration to 255,000 per year in 2025-26, and then net overseas migration of 225,000 per year for the remainder of the forecast period. However, if Australia's population growth grows 15% faster than projected, which seems more likely, the National Housing Supply and Affordability Council's forecasts that the projected housing shortage will increase to around 200,000 over the next 5 years alone. On the other hand, if the population grows 15% slower than projected, then there will actually be a surplus of 40,000 homes over the next 5-year period. The National Housing Supply and Affordability Council's report is proof positive that if you cut immigration, you will solve Australia's structural housing shortage. Sadly, Australians face a permanent rental crisis. The Centre for Population projects that Australia's population will grow by 13.5 million people over the next 40 years. This 13.5 million increase in population is the equivalent of adding another Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane to the current population in just 40 years. This would conservatively require the construction of around 6 million homes, accounting for demolitions. I say it's conservative because most of these homes would be apartments, which by their nature cannot hold as many people per dwelling as detached houses. An extra 13.5 million people would also require huge volumes of infrastructure investment, which would continue to compete against housing for labour and resources. The solution to Australia's rental crisis is staring policymakers in the face. It should merely copy Canada and freeze Australia's population growth. Like in Australia, rents in Canada soared to a record high in 2022 and 2023 in response to Canada's largest ever immigration influx. However, unlike Australia, the Canadian government last year imposed a 3-year pause on population growth to relieve the strains on housing and infrastructure. And guess what? It worked, with Canada's population growth slowing to a crawl. Asking rents in Canada have now fallen for 11 consecutive months, led by Vancouver and Toronto, which have experienced the biggest declines in population growth. Canada's largest bank, BMO, also stated last month that rents should continue to fall as, quote, stricter immigration targets continue to slow population growth and limit new household formations. So there you have it, folks. The solution to Australia's rental crisis is pretty obvious. Just cut immigration. The reality is, if Australia's population continues to grow faster than we can build houses and infrastructure, then Australia's rental crisis will continue and it'll get worse. It's as simple as that. This is basic supply and demand, and it isn't rocket science. So why aren't Australia's policymakers listening? Anyway, enjoy the rest of the conference, and I'll catch you next time.